hold, the bitcoinhold.com. The Bitcoin self-custody is the whole. Find the strength inside your soul. Your the bitcoinhold.com.
Imagine paying a team of elite security auditors $100,000 to spend 3 months combing through your open source code base.
Right.
They review every single line, they find absolutely nothing, and you feel perfectly safe. And then an attacker pays, I don't know, $1 for an API key, points a frontier AI model at that exact same code, and completely drains your accounts during your lunch break.
It sounds like science fiction, honestly. Yeah. But that is the exact economic inversion we are witnessing right now in the security landscape.
It's wild.
The attackers simply have an asymmetric advantage.
Well, welcome to this deep dive on the Bitcoin hole. Our mission for this weekly report is to really just cut through the noise and look at what's been a brutal, but I think entirely necessary wake-up call for Bitcoin infrastructure this week.
A huge wake-up call.
Yeah. We are going to examine the actual mechanics of how AI is actively being weaponized against open source Bitcoin code. We'll also cover how to safely migrate your funds using tools that bypass the public mempool entirely.
Which is critical right now.
Super critical. And we'll break down the game theory behind the BIP 110 chain split that just hit the base layer. Let's just jump right in. We already know about the catastrophic hardware wallet entropy vulnerabilities from our last report. But the real story emerging from the rubble this week is the sheer velocity of how these zero-day exploits are being discovered.
Right. I mean, if you look at the reports published just recently by Casa and Bitbox, they highlight a terrifying shift behind the scenes. Historically, vulnerability discovery was incredibly slow. Like reading a massive complex code base well enough to find a subtle logic flaw that required a highly paid, scarce human expert spending weeks of their time.
But not anymore. Now it literally just requires that API key in a quiet afternoon.
Frankly.
Attackers are pointing frontier AI models, specifically advanced ones like Kimi K3 and Quinn 3.8 Max at public open source repositories. But I want to understand the actual mechanics here.
Sure.
How does an AI model hunt for a bug differently than, a human security researcher with a script?
Well, it really comes down to context windows and something called glue logic.
Yeah.
So a human auditor typically looks at a code base sequentially, right?
Okay.
They check module A, they make sure it's secure, and then they move to module B. But the human brain struggles to hold an entire sprawling architecture in working memory all at once.
Right. You just can't keep a million lines of code in your head.
Exactly. But an advanced AI model can hold the entire repository in its context window simultaneously. So it excels at finding bugs in the glow logic, the seams where those different modules interact.
Oh, I see.
It spots the gap where, say, the developer of module A assumed module B sanitized the input data, but the developer of module B assumed module A already handled it.
So the bug isn't necessarily a broken piece of code, it's a broken assumption between two different developers.
Precisely. And once the AI spots that broken assumption, it begins fuzzing the interface.
Fuzzing?
Yeah, fuzzing is essentially throwing unexpected malformed data at a system just to force it to crash or behave unpredictably.
Like trying to break the lock by jamming random keys in it.
Right. But traditional fuzzing is somewhat blind. It just throws random garbage at the wall. AI performs smart fuzzing. It actually understands the context of the code and generates the exact, highly specific sequence of malformed data, most likely to bypass a security check.
Wow. And we are seeing the results of this on the live network right now. I mean, Bolt, which is a major non-custodial Bitcoin bridge, they had to completely suspend their swap services this week.
Yeah, that was huge.
And they were totally transparent that this wasn't just a one-off incident. They've been fighting a steady rise in automated AI-assisted probing of their infrastructure.
Right. They patch one exploit, and the attackers just iterate and find another one faster than a small team can handle.
And it spilled over into the Lightning Network infrastructure too, right?
It did. BTC Pay Server suffered a critical vulnerability in version 2.4.2 that was actively exploited. This actually led to drained Lightning nodes. I mean, even Foundation's own node was hit overnight.
Jeez.
The attackers used exposed LND macaroon credentials to access the funds.
Okay, wait, before we go further, let's break that down. For anyone who isn't deep into Lightning node architecture, what exactly is a macaroon? And mechanically, how does exposing it allow an attacker to just drain a node?
Think of a macaroon like a cryptographic hotel keycard, but with highly specific programmable permissions.
Okay.
When you check into a hotel, your keycard might let you open your room and the gym, but it definitely won't open the manager's office. In a Lightning node, a macaroon grants an application the right to perform specific actions like generating an invoice, checking a balance, or, in the most sensitive case, authorizing a payment.
So it's an authorization token.
Exactly. So if an AI scanner finds a vulnerability that allows it to scrape a powerful macaroon from your server's memory, or maybe a poorly secured configuration file, it essentially prints a master keycard. It doesn't even need your seed phrase. It just commands your node to send the money to the attacker, and the node obeys because the macaroon mathematically proves it has the authority to ask.
That is wild. And it forced major infrastructure providers like ZEUS and ZapLocker to take their services temporarily offline just to conduct comprehensive audits.
Yep.
But I have to push back here on kind of a sacred cow in the Bitcoin space.
Go for it.
We've always been told that open source code protects us, right? The whole many eyes theory. It implies that because anyone can read the code, bugs get caught by the good guys before the bad guys exploit them. Is that just a myth now?
Well, Charles Gieman, the CTO of Ledger, he made a brilliant point on this very topic recently. He stated plainly that open source is not a security property. It is a hope.
A hope. Wow.
Right. If your security model relies on the crowd saving you, you do not have a security model.
That's a harsh reality.
It is, but it's true. Manual security audits by humans are like taking a photograph. They capture a system that ceases to exist the exact moment a developer commits new code the next day.
Okay.
AI vulnerability hunting, on the other hand, is like a live continuous video feed. The AI doesn't sleep. If defenders aren't running these exact same frontier AI models continuously against their own code to find the bugs first, they are going to lose.
So if open source eyeballs can't save us from automated AI scanners, how do we actually physically structure our defense right now? I mean, we have to assume that individual devices will have bugs and that any single piece of software can and will be broken.
The answer lies in how the industry's adapting its architecture. CASA uses a term borrowed from aviation safety. Dissimilar redundancy.
Dissimilar redundancy.
Right. When Boeing or Airbus build an airplane, they don't just put 3 identical flight computers on board. They build separate computers using different hardware, running completely different software written by entirely different teams.
Right, because if there's a flaw in one...
If a fatal software bug exists in one, it won't crash the entire plane because the backup is running dissimilar code.
And in Bitcoin self-custody, this basically translates to multi-vendor multisig. It's like relying on a single hardware vendor is like having 3 locks on your front door, but they are all made by the exact same blacksmith using the same defective metal.
That is a perfect analogy.
So if you have a 2 of 3 multisig vault, and one hardware vendor ships flawed firmware, or an AI finds a 0 day in their specific random number generator, the attacker still only has one key.
Right, we like a quorum.
The funds do not move. A catastrophic headline-grabbing vulnerability just degrades into like a minor maintenance task where you swap out the compromised key.
It is the ultimate backstop. It really is.
Wait, though. Multi-vendor multisig makes perfect sense in theory, but doesn't that just multiply the complexity for an average user?
It can, yeah.
I mean, if I'm managing 3 different hardware wallets with 3 different interfaces and 3 different update cycles, aren't I statistically more likely to make a mistake and lock myself out than I am to be hacked by an AI?
Look, that is the classic trade-off between convenience and sovereignty. And frankly, 10 years ago, you would have been absolutely right. The complexity was a massive footgun.
Right.
But today, because of standardized Bitcoin improvement proposals like BIP 329 for wallet labels and PSBTs for partially signed Bitcoin transactions, these disparate devices can communicate seamlessly.
So the UX is caught up.
It has. The user experience has evolved to a point where managing a multi-vendor setup is actually highly streamlined. But, you're right to highlight the operational risk, which brings up a very specific danger right now. What happens when you realize one of your devices is compromised and you need to migrate your funds?
Yes, this is where the mechanics get super fascinating this week. If you need to sweep your funds to a new safe setup, Nunchuck just released an update iOS version 2.7.1 that automatically routes the multisig migration transaction through MARA's slipstream.
And we really need to explain why broadcasting a normal transaction is so dangerous in that specific scenario.
Okay, let's break it down.
The public mempool, where unconfirmed transactions wait to be picked up by miners, is effectively a glass box.
Everyone can see inside.
Everyone. So if an attacker has mathematically reconstructed your weak seed because of a device vulnerability, they hold your keys, and they are actively watching that glass box with automated scripts.
So the second I realize my device is compromised, I panic. I hit send to move my funds to a new wallet. The attacker sees my transaction appear in the glass box.
Right. And their automated script instantly constructs a duplicate transaction, but sending your funds to their wallet instead. And they use a mechanism called replace by fee, or RBF.
RBF sniping.
Exactly. The attacker simply attaches a significantly higher miner fee to their transaction. Miners are economically rational actors, right?
Yeah.
They want the highest fee.
So they mine the attacker's transaction and completely drop yours.
Yeah. It's a high-stakes automated auction for your own money, and the attacker has nothing to lose.
That is absolutely terrifying. But MARA Slipstream bypasses the glass box entirely.
It does.
It's a direct submission service to the MARA mining pool. So the transaction stays completely hidden from the public mempool and therefore hidden from the attacker's automated scripts until MARA actually mines it into a block.
Which is brilliant.
Yeah, integrating this automatically for affected multisig wallets and Nunchuck is just a massive architectural upgrade for safe migrations.
It really is. And, it's not just software wallets adapting. The hardware itself is evolving to remove trust in silicon chips entirely.
Right.
Foundation's Passport Prime just released KeyOS version 1.3.1. It lets users input physical dice rolls to generate the 12th or 24th checksum word entirely on the device without needing an external tool.
Let's explain why entropy, like true randomness, matters so much here. If a silicon chip generates your seed phrase, you are fundamentally trusting the manufacturer's math.
Yes.
If that math is predictable, your keys are mathematically exposed, which is exactly what we saw happen recently. Generating entropy with casino-grade physical dice is really the only way to ensure 100% true randomness.
Exactly. But historically, calculating that final checksum word to make the seed phrase valid, it required a secondary air-gapped computer.
Which is a huge pain.
Incredible friction. And it introduces its own security risks, right? Doing it natively on the hardware wallet removes that friction entirely.
And Crux is actually taking this defense in-depth approach a step further with their version 26.08.0 release. They are making their firmware installer completely internet-less.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, from now on, when you flash a Crux device, the installer doesn't download anything at runtime. It just rips out the HTTP stack and any third-party Python package dependencies.
Which is basically a perfect defense against supply chain attacks. A supply chain attack is when a hacker compromises a third-party library that your software relies on. By removing the internet from the installation process, Crux ensures you are flashing exactly what was cryptographically signed by the developers at build time.
No unexpected dependencies can be injected at the last second.
None.
Okay, so we can isolate our hardware, we can bypass the public mempool to protect our keys during a migration, and we can remove network dependencies. But, and this is but protecting your keys means absolutely nothing if the underlying network rules change beneath your feet.
That's so true.
Which brings us to the BIP 110 chain split. We've talked a lot about sovereignty over private keys today, but this week was a very stark reminder about the responsibility of sovereignty over network consensus.
Yeah, the BIP 110 split was a massive reality check for a lot of people.
Walk us through the mechanics of what actually happened.
Sure. So to lay it out, BIP 110 was a proposed soft fork with mandatory signaling, and it officially activated at block 961,632.
Okay.
When that block hit, Bitcoin NOTs nodes, which were specifically programmed to enforce BIP 110, began rejecting any blocks that did not signal for the upgrade. This caused a literal chain split on the Bitcoin network.
Right, so the NOTs nodes peeled off and created an alternative chain, which is being referred to as the RDTS chain.
Yeah.
But the reality of the split was just brutal for the BIP 110 supporters. The RDTS chain immediately stalled out.
Completely flatlined.
Major mining pools like Ocean, Antpool, and Foundry completely ignored the signaling requirement and just continued mining on the default Bitcoin Core consensus rules. So within hours, the Bitcoin Core chain was 15 plus blocks ahead, while the RDTS chain only managed to find 2 blocks. It was dead in the water.
And the fallout was immediate.
Yeah.
Start9, the popular node operating system,
Yeah.
they officially de-indexed Bitcoin NOTs from their marketplace to protect their users. They actually issued a final update warning that the RDTS chain is permanently stalled and that nothing broadcast on it will confirm.
Wow.
MyNode also issued emergency warnings for users to reset their node back to the default core version.
This is a critical point we need to dig into. Why is being stuck on a stalled chain so dangerous? I mean, if I just wait it out, doesn't my node eventually catch up?
It is exceptionally dangerous if you were using the Lightning Network.
Okay, wow.
Well, Lightning is fundamentally a web of cryptographic IOUs, right? You and a counterparty lock Bitcoin in a channel, and you trade those IOUs back and forth. The entire security model relies entirely on your base layer node actively watching the main Bitcoin blockchain.
Right, because if your counterparty tries to cheat by, say, broadcasting an old IOU where they had more money, your node is supposed to see that old state hit the blockchain and automatically broadcast a penalty transaction to punish them and take the funds.
Precisely. But that penalty transaction relies on a time lock. It's a ticking clock. If your node is stuck on the stalled RDTS chain, it is completely blind to what is happening on the actual core chain.
Oh, no.
Yeah. The cheating transaction gets confirmed on the real network. The ticking clock expires. Your node never saw it happen, so it never fired the penalty transaction.
So you check your wallet a week later, and your funds have simply been stolen, and your node had absolutely no idea.
It had no idea.
Man, this proves that running your own node is a serious responsibility. It's not just a hobby where you set it and forget it. You have to actively monitor and manage the consensus rules you are enforcing.
You really do.
If your node blinds you to the network, you literally lose your sovereignty. And actually, to help you understand the hardware and software trade-offs so a fork doesn't catch you blind like this, you should definitely check out the Bitcoin nodes comparison on thebitcoinhole.com. It is just a highly practical resource to ensure your sovereignty setup is actually robust enough to handle the messy reality of network consensus.
Yeah, understanding what software your node is running isn't just about validating your own transactions anymore. It's literally about protecting your layer 2 funds from being silently swept.
Totally. Now, I want to dig into the broader implications of this split. Does this massive failure mean the concept of a user-activated soft fork, a UASF, is just dead?
No, I wouldn't say UASFs are dead, but this event proved that you absolutely cannot bluff your way into one. We have to look at the game theory of miner incentives. A node gives you the power to reject invalid blocks, sure, but it does not give you the power to force miners to create the blocks you want.
So how did it work during the 2017 block size war then?
In 2017, the UASF worked because it was backed by the economic majority. I mean, the major exchanges, the capital, the heavy users, they essentially signaled to the market, we will only buy and recognize SegRit blocks.
Ah, I see.
Miners have massive electricity bills to pay in fiat currency. If they mine a block that the exchanges refuse to recognize, they cannot sell the Bitcoin they just mined. Their block reward is economically worthless.
They are burning electricity for nothing.
Exactly.
So hash power always has to follow capital.
Always. Hash follows capital. This time around with BIP 110, there was no economic backing. No major exchanges enforced it. So when the NOTs nodes split off to form the RDTS chain, the miners simply ignored them.
They didn't care.
Right. Running a node that enforces rules nobody else with capital cares about isn't a revolution. It's just shouting into the void. Without massive economic weight, you cannot punish the miners financially, which means you cannot dictate the rules.
That is a harsh reality check. We talk so much about running a node to enforce the rules, but it sounds like an individual node is really more of a defensive shield than an offensive weapon.
That is the perfect way to frame it. It's a shield.
Okay, let's recap this intensive deep dive. We've seen that AI has permanently changed the vulnerability landscape. The days of relying purely on open source many eyes to catch bugs before attackers do are officially over.
Long gone.
AI is finding the flaws in the glue logic instantly. Because of this, dissimilar redundancy, specifically multi-vendor multisig, is no longer an optional luxury. It is a mandatory practice for serious self-custody.
And while Lightning infrastructure is taking heavy hits from these automated probing attacks, the defense is upping rapidly. We are seeing tools like Slipstream bypassing the mempool to prevent RBF sniping, and native dice roll math pushing the boundaries of trustless hardware defense.
And finally, the BIP 110 split is a stark reminder that consensus is messy, and you need true economic weight to enforce a network rule change. If you found this deep dive useful in keeping your self-custody skills sharp, please take a second to rate the show and leave a comment on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It really helps us get this critical info out to more Bitcoiners.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
We've spent this entire report looking at how frontier AI models are easily uncovering zero-day flaws in open-source Bitcoin infrastructure. But remember, Bitcoin's code is public, it's heavily scrutinized, and the bugs are fixed in the open.
Right.
Imagine what these exact same AI models are finding right now in the closed-source, decades-old legacy code of the traditional banking system.
Oh, wow.
Code that no independent researcher is ever allowed to audit. We thought the open-source blueprints of our ecosystem were a liability because the AI scanners could see them. But perhaps the real liability is a financial fortress built in the dark where the walls are cracking, and nobody is even allowed to look until it collapses.
That is a chilling thought. Are we actually safer simply because our battles happen in the daylight? Keep your keys safe, keep your firmware updated, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.
Hold your own keys. Stay sovereign. The Bitcoin hold. The Bitcoin hold.